coming through when the growth look good on you. Best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep hitting me.
Yes, people. It's G, and we are back in the building today. We are back for England's opener against Iran in Group B. So, obviously, England kick off their World Cup campaign, looking like they'll be the favourites for today's game. Kicks off at 1 p.m. UK time. A couple other games on today as well, but I guess the one that we all really actually care about is the England game. So, I thought, you know what, let's take a little dive into England quickly, having a little look at, potential lineups, formations they could potentially play and things like that. There has been a little bit of news this morning. It was broken out by Sky Sports that in regards to what England's lineup might potentially be. But, we'll get into all of that in a second. Guys, just before we dive into that, make sure you please like in, make sure you're subscribing, make sure you share, make sure you share to your mama, your mama's mama, your auntie, your uncle, the whole nine. But done with the formalities, done with the boring stuff. Yesterday, we obviously saw the first game of the World Cup, Qatar versus Ecuador. Bit of a drab game, if I'm being honest with you, by the host. I think they were the first host to lose in a very, very long time. It's been a very good record for host of the World Cup, but unfortunately, Qatar were not able to keep up that tradition of not losing on the opening day as they went down 2-0 to Ecuador. And Valencia, I know. There's a player that we haven't seen or heard from in a long time since his stint at Everton and West Ham. But that's all that rubbish. Let's get into England. Who are England going to play today? I think, there has been talk this morning. And as I said, it was posted out by, Sky Sports in regards to their lineup. As you guys can see here, Maguire looks set to start in a back four for England, and Gareth Southgate does look like he's going to play a 4-3-3 formation. I mean, look, we know how Gareth Southgate plays. We know what his style of football is. Very pragmatic, quite boring on the eye, to be honest with you, which is very funny because England have some of the best attacking talent out there in Europe, if I'm being honest. Harry Kane, Phil Foden, Raheem Sterling, Bukayo Saka, just to name a few, Jack Grealish as well. That's a very good attacking quartet that they've got there. If you add in the fact that they've now put in Callum Wilson, who's been on fire this season for Newcastle, propelled them to third in the Premier League table, looking like they might, go on a little bit of a European run or fight towards European qualification, should I say, sorry. So it is going to be very interesting to see what Gareth Southgate obviously tries to do. As we already know, James Maddison and Kyle Walker will be unavailable for today's game against Iran. Both have picked up knocks. Maddison picked up his knock in the final game of the Premier League midway season. So he is definitely not in for today's team. Whether that would change people's thinking in terms of who they would want to see play and things like that, I don't really know. Just on Maddison, I've never really been a massive fan. Not to say, I think he's a rubbish player or anything like that. I just think I've never really been too sold on him, prior to coming to Leicester City, when he was at Norwich. I felt like he was a decent player for Norwich. I felt like he was a decent young player anyway, making his way obviously through, up the ranks, so to speak. And I always felt like, Maddison's a decent player. Whether I feel that he's at that top level, remains to be seen, to be honest with you. But there's no denying the fact that, especially in 2022, Maddison, I think maybe just behind Harry Kane, if not he's top of the goals and assist charts in 2022. So that kind of speaks volumes. And I felt like one of the main reasons why, Gareth Southgate put him in, and I don't think it's really for his qualities or his abilities, to be honest with you. I actually just think that the backlash from not putting someone like James Maddison into the England squad, would have been, it just would have been a bit too much heat, and I don't think he would have had a rebuttal to that, to be honest with you, as to why he didn't include someone like a James Maddison. There were other names who should have, some people feel that should have, been included into the England squad. Tomori being one of the main ones, Ivan Toney as well. They have got in Callum Wilson, so whether that was an either or type of situation in regards to that, whether he chose, Toney or Callum Wilson, as I said, Wilson has helped Newcastle propel them to third in the Premier League. So maybe that was one of the reasons why he would just edge it. Obviously, we know with Toney and, he's got a few off-field, we won't get into it, but a few off-field issues that he's currently going through. So, of course, maybe, the FA and Gareth Southgate knew about that beforehand. Maybe that played a part in their thinking. We'll never really and truly know. But both players probably did deserve, to be in this squad. Who you take out, I don't really know, because I feel that looking at the squad again, when I do look at this England squad, I do start to think how he's kind of done it. It seems like he's brought in players, obviously, to do specific type of jobs. Even if you look at players like Jordan Henderson and things like that, I don't think that they needed a Jordan Henderson because of his playing ability. I think what he brings to the squad is more his experience. This is the guy who's won everything, with Liverpool Football Club, especially over the last 5 years. So, of course, when you're bringing in someone with that level of experience, someone who's an elder head in the England squad, someone who's been there with Gareth Southgate over the last 2 tournaments, England getting to the final of the Euros, getting to the semi-final of the previous World Cup. So this is someone that maybe Gareth Southgate felt like he needed to have around. Players like Phillips, I think he's brought him in because he has a very good relationship with Declan Rice in that midfield. Again, both of those two have shown that when they are together in the midfield, they are able to forge a very good partnership. Forge a very good partnership. Do I think Calvin Phillips should have been in the squad? No, just because I don't feel like he's played enough football in the last 12 months to warrant a place in the squad. But Gareth Southgate, he likes familiarity. He still keeps picking Harry Maguire. So that tells you that he loves familiarity. So, of course, he's going to still continue with some of the players that he feels, are able to exert the exact instructions that he needs, from the squad. But alas, the squad's already been picked. England are heading into today's game not in the best of form. If I'm being honest with you, they're not really heading into this, in great form. I feel that, if we take a look here, England's last 8 games, if you look there, Germany 3-3, England were losing at a point in that game, came back to obviously fight to get it back to 3-3, lost to Italy, lost 4-0 to Hungary. We'll get onto that in a minute. Drew 0-0 with Italy prior to that, drew 1-1 with Germany, lost to Hungary, beat Ivory Coast 3-0, and beat Switzerland 2-1. So that is 2 wins in their last 8. So if you want to take out those 2 wins, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, their last 6 games, they've got 0 wins. So they're not coming into this in the best of form, relegated from the Nations League. So again, the humiliation of that. They flatter to deceive, if I'm being totally honest with you. There's been a lot of talk about the World Cup and the timing of the World Cup, obviously it being, midway through a season. I feel that could actually help a lot of teams instead of hinder. I know a lot of people think that it's going to be the latter, but I actually think it will help, especially certain players who are in form at this current moment in time. I think that when you're looking at the end of a season for a World Cup or, any prestigious tournament, you look at it like this. Players will finish their, end of season. If they're in Europe or they're in a, Champions League, Europa League, or what any type of final, to be honest with you, at the end of a season, that's another game, end of the season. Then they go for a little bit of a break. I say break, but it's just more a bit of, they haven't got any matches, downtime, so to speak. They'll do that for about a week or 2, or or maybe just under, and then they have to get back into action straight away. And I think that little break at the end of a season, I never feel like it works, especially in England, how intense, the Premier League is. To then have to drop off for about a week and a half, and then you come back into, a massive tournament. I feel that midway through a tournament, players are still, comfortable. Players are still in form. Now, of course, we've seen a lot of injuries. Sadio Mane is going to miss, the World Cup. Benzema has now just been ruled out, of the World Cup. And, many other players have been ruled out of this World Cup due to their injuries, which, of course, is going to be the cons behind it. But I just feel like the pros is going to be the fact that they're midway through a season, so they're still in that mode of playing football. They haven't had to drop off or anything like that. They haven't had to go away for a break or anything. So me personally, I feel like this could potentially help England moving forward. But when we take a look at Iran's form now, obviously Iran qualified for the World Cup, topping their group. They finished top. I think it was play 10, 1-8. So that's pretty decent. If you look at their last 8 games, 1, 2, 3, 4 wins out of their last 8 games, 3 defeats and 1 draw. So if we're going by form, Iran come into this in better form. They will come into this game thinking that, they can potentially be a nuisance to England. And I think that's probably how Carlos Queiroz, who is the Iran manager, that's probably how he's looking at it and how he's thinking about it, is that if we can become a bit of a nuisance, to England, it just might rattle England. It just might rattle England. Gareth Southgate's got a very pragmatic style of playing, and with that, I don't know if as we saw here, as I showed you guys earlier on, posted out by Sky Sports, England, Harry Maguire looks set to start, which I think we all knew anyway, and Southgate is set to start with a 4-3-3. When I'm looking at that, I'm just thinking. Of course, lots of teams play 4-3-3 around Europe in terms of club teams, but some teams play the 4-3-3 in different ways. It just kind of depends on. I think one of the main components of a 4-3-3 is actually your striker. What kind of role is your striker going to play within that 4-3-3? Because then it's a bit of a domino effect, because then your wingers, are they just pure wingers? I.e., are they just going to stay out wide, and just feed the ball into your striker? But when you've only got one of those, if Iran then decide to play, potentially 5 at the back, that might then stop the effectiveness of someone like a Harry Kane, meaning then your wingers then become isolated out there really and truly, because they're not really going to be in the game. Or are they going to be, for example, like a Manchester City or like a Liverpool, where they're like inside forwards? So you almost have 3 strikers effectively, but they're just wide strikers, so to speak. So it's going to be interesting as to who he decides to play and how he decides to play and things like that. Just wanted to quickly, guys, show you. Obviously, like I said, Gareth Southgate looks set to play a 4-3-3 formation. This is the team that I would have played. So I'd obviously done this team yesterday. So this is prior to the news, but this is the kind of team that I would have put out for today's game. You can see it's done in a 4-4-2 formation. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that's maybe 2 attacking, which doesn't even make sense considering the amount of attacking players that we've currently got, in this team. That's the way that we should be going. That's the way that we should be trying to head. 2 in midfield, Bellingham and Rice. I think those 2 are, in my opinion, a foregone conclusion. Bellingham, been outstanding for Borussia Dortmund this season, and I think that he warrants a place in the midfield. Rice has always been in this England midfield. He's been quite an important component of that midfield for Gareth Southgate, so I feel he would, continue to stay there. Back 4. Shaw, Stones, Maguire, Trippier. I feel that if he is going to play a back 4, that is the exact back 4 he's going to go with. I don't see him starting Trent Alexander-Arnold. Again, I feel like he's another player who he's been in poor form this season. Obviously, what he can bring is something that England don't really have in that quality. Although I do believe that Trippier is someone who can potentially match that. Going forward, someone like Trippier is excellent going forward. Set pieces, he's better than Trent Alexander-Arnold. So don't be surprised if you see him on most of the free kicks, or I'd prefer to see him anyway on all of England's free kicks if I'm looking at this lineup here. So going forward, he offers you that. Coming back, he's still a very competent defender, something that I feel that Trent is obviously lacking, especially this season as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see, what type of back four he decides to go with. As I said, you're coming up against Iran. You're going to be the favorites. You're the favorites for the tournament. So maybe impose yourself. Let's play to England's strengths. I don't think England's strengths lie in defense. They do not lie in defensive transitions. They don't have that good of a defense or even defensive players who I feel are going to help with being so pragmatic and, slow build up play and things like that. When we move on to the attack, Saka been in electric form, for Arsenal this season, helped the team to, currently 5 points clear at the top of the Premier League table. Foden, again, I feel like he's been really, really good this season. Not as good as Saka, in my opinion, but he has played extremely well. And then up top, I've gone with Kane and Wilson. So when I was looking at the kind of tactics and things like that, I feel like when you're a team like England, and if you look at club level, most clubs will play obviously with one up front, which makes total sense because most clubs don't really have a competent second striker, and obviously their tactics might just not really work with having two up front. That's absolutely fine. But when I look at England, I feel like this is kind of the way to go. As you can see, I've got Kane a little bit deeper, almost in that attacking midfield, or number 10 position that he seems to love to drop into. But then having someone like Wilson, someone who can play on the shoulder of the last defender, someone who's still quick enough, strong enough, and is a very good finisher. Kane, for me, would be the perfect partner for him. He would be someone who can pick the ball up in those half spaces. Whether he wants to shoot, we all know Kane's a very, very good finisher. We all know Kane's got a great shot on him. So why not have someone like a Wilson up top? Someone who even the two can swap with each other. If Wilson can get the flick on to Harry Kane, Harry Kane's not, extremely quick, but at least if he can get the flick on to Kane, have Kane running in on goal, I don't think anyone's going to say no to that. So I feel like the two can work in tandem together. So it does just kind of depend on the type of style of football that, someone like Gareth Southgate wants to play in this game. I've got Foden out there on the left. That's the position that he's occupied mostly for Manchester City this season. Obviously, there's still Sterling and there's still Grealish, which are obviously great options to have off the bench. Sterling not really been in good form for Chelsea since his move from Manchester City. I just think excuse me, I just think with the change of manager, potentially the formation, I think there was a game or two I've seen him at wing back. It just hasn't really worked for Raheem Sterling at this current moment in time. That's not to say that he can't play in some games. Now, in future previews that I do, I might feel that having a Raheem Sterling might be better. He might start today and plays electrifying, which then means, he's going to have to play the next game. He's going to have to start. But when I'm looking at what works, play these players, and I've said this before about Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp, is play the players in their best positions. Stop trying to shoehorn players. We've seen Saka at left wing back. We don't need to see that. Unless there's a crisis at left back, but then I feel that you could just put Trippier out there, and then Trent Alexander in at right back. Have defenders really playing there. We don't need to see Saka out there on the left hand side. That's where I feel that Phil Foden can interchange really well with someone like a Harry Kane, who does like to drop into different areas. He likes to drop to the right. He likes to drop into the middle. He likes to drop out to the left-hand side as well. He can work well with someone like a Foden, who, in my opinion, if he does swap with a Harry Kane, he's someone that you want running into the box because, again, he's a very good finisher. He's someone that when he's in and around the box, he likes to take his shots off. We've seen some of the goals that he scored this season alone, but just throughout his career for Manchester City, I feel that it could work really, really well. And then Saka on that right-hand side, cutting in, into the middle, getting shots off. That's exactly what you need. I don't think there's, in the England squad anyway, I don't think there's going to be another or a better player who'd be able to play that right wing role better than, Bukayo Saka. So, like I said, it does remain to be seen as to, what he chooses to do. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. As I said, he is looking to play a 4-3-3 formation, so it will just depend. And I keep saying it will just depend on the style of play. From England, I do envisage that England should win the game. they should, obviously they are favourites for the game, and they should, go out there and maybe a 2-0 victory against Iran. Iran are going to be resolute at the back. That's one thing I will say. That's one thing that Carlos Queiroz is going to try and get the Iran players to do. In terms of danger men, there is Porto striker Temidi. Apologies if I said that wrong. Who has been in electrifying form for Iran, got a lot of goals for Iran, and is a player for Porto who is, again, been in decent form over the last couple of seasons. So they have their danger men, but I feel that for me, in a team like Iran, I feel that they're just going to try and be a nuisance towards England. So if they're going to be a nuisance towards England, England don't necessarily have to play into that trap. We don't need slow football, slow passing, slow build-up play. What we need to have, especially when you've got, these kind of players, Foden, Saka, Kane, even Bellingham. Bellingham's a player who can get up and down the pitch, obviously along with Rice, but Bellingham is a player who can help out in the attack as well. When you've then got those four in attack, supplementing someone like a Wilson, who I know people might scratch their head thinking to themselves, oh, why has he got Callum Wilson up there and things like that. He's a good finisher. He's a very, very good finisher, and I feel like he does deserve his place in the England squad. So if he's there, use him. Let's try something a little bit different. England go into these tournaments doing the same thing over and over again, and it's like you haven't won a tournament since 1966. And you've been kind of using the same formula in terms of thinking that your so-called best players have to all play at the same time, when we've seen throughout time that actually probably doesn't work for international football, so to speak, especially when they haven't got the right tactics and the right style of play. Gerrard and Lampard, the two most notable ones. When you look at those two, Gerrard, Lampard, and even if you throw Scholes in there, this is the time when England especially weren't playing a 4-3-3 formation, but that would have been absolutely perfect for England, instead of trying to stick Scholes or Steven Gerrard out to the left of midfield and potentially try and have them cut in and things like that. It doesn't work. It really doesn't work. And I just think that England need to just try something a little different, maybe just be a little bit more on the front foot, and then we might be able to see different results. Because as an attacking threat, England are, second to, only Brazil maybe, and even then I think that they are definitely equal. And Brazil don't have the greatest of attack, obviously Neymar being the standout. France, obviously now Benzema's obviously been injured. The players are there. The players are there to use. So why not just use them? Why not just use them instead of playing this kind of boring style of football? But we'll wait and see. We will wait and see as to what happens. That's my preview for today's game, England versus Iran, 1 p.m. UK time. I'll be back either tonight, or I'll be dropping my review on the game in itself. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you guys like this video. Stick those notification bells on, because I will be dropping that for you. And I'm G, and I'm out.